Hello everyone, and welcome to the presentation of the article Readiness of the SME Sector for Market Changes Arising from the Fourth Industrial Revolution, written by me, Oliwia ЩLUSARCZYK. In order to exhaustively explain the meaning of the topic, it is important to mention the following areas. Preparation for Industry 4.0 requires the change in the approach of enterprises to their management and some irreversible changes. At the same time, the change management process is long-term. In turn, the dynamics of Industry 4.0 solutions are very fast. Moreover, a negative overall economic situation on a global scale in a recent period and the related SARS-CoV-2 pandemic additionally strengthen the choice of industrial companies for the further analysis in terms of their readiness for changes. The assessment of the impact of internal conditions on the approach to change management in the SME sector in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. There is an assumption that enterprises, to keep up with external changes, must change their approach to change management, which will improve their competitive position in the market and meet the needs of new generations. For this purpose, own survey research was carried out, which included 996 industrial enterprises operating in the European Union. The study used an analysis of the frequency of responses. To identify differences between the groups, the Kruskal-Wallis-ANOVA test was subsequently applied for independent groups. Testing differences between the groups of the dependent variable with independent variables was carried out using the Kendall's Tau-B method for nominal variables. As it can be seen on the slide, the research considers a lot of variables and their dimensions. Firstly, change management time as the two-dimensional dependent variable. Then, demographics independent variables, which were preliminarily identified as the ones that determine change management. And then, the other variables related to operations associated with change management. The graphic presentation of the relationship between change management in the company and the size and time of its operation shows preliminary relationships between the factors examined. It can be observed that micro-enterprises deal with change management for up to 4 years or beyond 10 years more often than others. Small enterprises deal with change management for 5 to 9 years more frequently than micro and medium ones. Medium entities usually take actions in the direction considered between more than a year, but less than 9 years. The data analysis indicates a large variation of enterprises that apply change management. Enterprises from the area of industrial production, trade, transport, hotel management and catering, and other services most often manage the process of changes in the period of 1 to 4 years. In the case of agriculture, this period is longer, 5 to 9 years. In turn, construction companies have been dealing with change management for the shortest period of time, less than a year. The results of preliminary research show that change management is determined by the size of the enterprise, sometimes its operations in the market, and the scope of activities. In turn, the occurrence of change management entails specific actions related to searching for a competitive advantage and assessing the occurrence of the change, methods of its mitigation, and the related costs. To identify differences between the groups, the Kruskal-Wallis-ANOVA test was subsequently applied for independent groups. First, the differences between the dependent variable and the demographics independent variables were tested. The summary of the test of the first part of the hypothesis, where p is less than 0.5, means that the zero hypothesis, which states the lack of differences between the analyzed groups for each tested independent variable should be rejected. Therefore, the alternative hypothesis should be adopted that there are statistically significant differences between the groups compared. Tests of pairwise comparison show that, firstly, there are statistically significant differences between change management and the company's size. Most often, the change is managed by micro-enterprises, the least frequently by medium enterprises. In turn, the larger the enterprise, the less frequently it takes actions oriented to the adjustment to changes occurring in the environment. Secondly, there are no statistically significant differences between change management and the company's market operation time. The company's market operation time does not determine its decision on the choice or its lack in terms of change management. Lastly, there are statistically significant differences between change management and the company's scope of activities. The group of entities that operate only in the national market do not manage significant changes more frequently. Examining the relationships between the dependent variable and the other independent variables for which P is less than 0.05 by tau B Kendall's test indicated statistical significance for all the relationships. Firstly, it was indicated that enterprises managing the change more often state that it is a process that can be treated as a strategic tool providing the enterprise with a competitive advantage. Secondly, enterprises that declare change management more often take various actions in this area. They are more willing to conduct the analysis of changes in the environment, assess their significance, and systematically observe. Thirdly, enterprises that manage the change are more willing to be interested in searching for all the reasons for changes in the market. Fourthly, enterprises managing the change more often analyze the factors determining the effects of changes. And lastly, entities that manage the change more often monitor costs and benefits related to the reduced impact of changes and differences between these components through key areas of changes. The process of statistical testing allowed for verifying the formulated hypothesis positively. It was indicated that the surveyed enterprises differ in terms of the size and the scope of activities in terms of change management. Micro-enterprises do not take actions for the benefit of change management more often than others. There is a great imbalance in this group broken down by the occurrence of change management or its lack. Enterprises operating in the international market, regardless of the number of years, manage the change significantly more often. Moreover, entities that declare change management significantly more often consider it as a strategic tool providing a competitive advantage. Therefore, they are also more likely to conduct the analysis of changes in the environment, assess the significance of these changes for business, and the need to monitor the environment. These entities are significantly more often interested in the searching for the reasons for market changes, and thus they more frequently analyze the factors determining the effects of changes, i.e., possible consequences of changes, their probability, and possible consequences, as well as their likelihood. Thank you so much for your attention.